Thank you, Nicola. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for giving up your Monday lunchtime in a sea of, I suspect, Microsoft Teams and Zoom meetings, but we really appreciate your time and energy today. Thank you for signing up to the Sea Change network. And I know we have one or two partners in the room who are considering us and joining us to see if it's a good fit for you. So thank you for that. Many of you, of course, are I wouldn't say old faces, you're looking very well, but are faces that we know from the Sea Change network of years gone by. And thank you for joining us again today. My name is Peter Patashko of Cambio House of Social Change, and of course, Nicola, who's introed herself briefly already from Flourish Together. And it's a partnership that we've put together to bring the Sea Change network to life. Absolutely, yes. Bring our network back to life. So in terms of today, I wanted to start by talking a bit about the purpose of the network for those of you that weren't at our sort of intro event back in February. Really, there are four key reasons why we thought the Sea Change network had value and why we wanted to relaunch it. First of all, for us, at the core of this, it's about building a legacy for social enterprise and innovation across universities, where nearly every university in England, of course there are about 140, are doing work in this area now in a way that 10 years ago that wasn't the case. So just really delighted to be able to bring that back and hopefully create a space where peer learning and sharing of resources and ideas and opportunities will be at the heart of the network. Also, we think there's value. We think there's value in sharing a menu of specialist support to all of you in terms of what follow-on activities we could do together and how we could formalize that. And then finally, also, can we build momentum around a larger program? So this is very much a pilot year of activity. What other universities perhaps might want to join us, and what sort of support could that look like in terms of capacity building? So these are really the four key aims. Let's jump straight into introductions, because I'm aware that while I think we know all of you, you may not know each other. And there are a couple of people who've joined us from universities who weren't at that initial event back in February. So if we can go around and do sort of roughly 3 to 5 minute introductions with 3 questions. So first of all, who are you, and of course, what institution are you from? Name, role, institution. Secondly, were you involved in the Sea Change programme with Unlimited? And thirdly, what would you say is your top current success related to social enterprise and social innovation at your university? So conscious that when I'm sharing screen, I can't see all of your lovely faces, but I will start with the first name on my screen, and that is Tessa. So Tessa, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So yeah, I'm Tessa Reid, Deputy Head for Careers and Employability at University of the Arts London. And I've worked with Peter and Nicola, I think on the Sea Change programme when I was working as a researcher for Design Against Crime, looking at design and social enterprise. And current top, yeah, I don't know what the top current success stories are. I think there's quite a lot of work around UAL sites and how it is trying to, its placemaking agenda and looking at the overlap with social enterprise, and also the amount of students who now apply for our Creative Enterprise Awards who have a social impact aspect to their work. So I think it's definitely becoming more important for our students and moving away from like more kind of commercial businesses. So I would say, yeah, that's quite a big success story. And that's me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tessa. Let's move on to Richard from Warwick.
Thanks, Peter. I don't know if I would count as an old hand in this. I qualified for my vaccines day, so you can tell exactly how old I am. Yeah, so nice to meet everybody. My name's Richard Grazel. I'm the Enterprise Pathway Manager at the University of Warwick. I've been at Warwick for just over 8 years. And the first job that I had when I started my first day in 2013 was being told that we'd signed up with Unlimited to deliver the programme, as was the Try It's and the Do It's, as you remember, but we were involved with Unlimited for I think about 4 or 5 years, but not in the last few years. I suppose, yeah, my role is primarily around supporting graduates and student and graduate entrepreneurship and innovation. So we deliver kind of skills programs, extracurricular activities, and as sort of funding opportunities, and obviously link students to external opportunities as well. And we also, in the last couple of years, have developed a graduate accelerator program to try and support graduates in the same way we support students, those that want to develop startups, including social enterprise startups. We're recently moved into a bigger group at the university. So we used to be part of the careers and skills team. We're now come out of that. We're now part of what's the Warwick Innovation Group. So we're working more closely with our tech transfer spin out team, Warwick Ventures, and our Warwick Science Park. And we were supposed to move into a new building last June. I have not been in that new building yet, but I'm supposed to be going on Thursday. So that's something to look forward to this week. So I haven't been back on campus since. And in terms of, I suppose where we are at the moment really is that we deliver kind of quite a lot of social enterprise activities that are quite small. And I think we're trying to kind of join those up in something that's a bit more coherent. There is a lot of interest from students and graduates around social innovation and social enterprise. I think that's increasing, which is great. But I think we know we need to be doing more, and we want to kind of build a bit more infrastructure and obviously work in partnership more with other universities. I think the last few years we've been kind of looking inwards a bit more as we've been trying to establish ourselves in the new group, but we're very much ready to start working in partnership with others. I don't know about one particular thing, but I think we are quite proud of our Warwick Enactors Society. We work really closely with them. They're one of the bigger enactor societies in the UK, and I think I'll really be impressed with the way they've managed to carry on delivering activities in the city and the region this year, despite the challenges that all students have had. I think they came in the top 25 at the competition a couple of weeks ago. So we've never won it, but one day we might. But I'm still proud of the fact that they've managed to keep going despite all the challenges we've had. And they've got about 6 or 7 really good projects running at the moment. So that's been a really good highlight for us in the last 12 months, really. But yeah, looking forward to working with people and seeing where we can go with the programme from today. Thanks, Peter.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard. And then I'll pass over to Andy Norris.
Oops. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I am new to this. I'm actually standing in for Lindsay Cole, our Director of Business Engagement at Westminster. So my name is Andy Norris. My role is Head of Culture and Inclusion, which I started back in November. So my main aim of that is around development and implementation of our people strategy. But before that role, I was Head of Corporate Social Responsibility at Westminster. So through that role, one of the things that I was involved with are some organisational submissions for the Sustainable Development Goals. And from the work that I did on that fed into submission that we did for the Social Enterprise Mark back in March 2020. And then in the summer, we did the Gold Mark and we were successful. So there's quite a link between those two, frameworks and using that as a measurement. So a lot of the information that we used for the Sustainable Development Goals, we were able to use for the Social Enterprise Mark. So that was my initial kind of link in. And then Lindsay started her role at the university, I think maybe the end of last year as well. And I think Lindsay's been involved with this, with the Sea Change programme. And so we're working together now. I'm supporting Lindsay in a few different areas, and I guess that probably links into our top successes. So obviously getting the Gold Mark, Social Enterprise Gold Mark, was a great success that I was directly involved with. We've also launched a Masters. So from our academic colleagues, we've launched a Masters in Social Enterprise. We have our Creative Enterprise Centre for students, which has been running now for I think 3 or 4 years, which links in with lots of local communities, local businesses, and obviously offers opportunities for our students to develop as social entrepreneurs. And then in the long term, the other thing that I'm working on with Lindsay is that we have plans for a social enterprise hub, which is at our Marylebone campus in central London. And so we're planning for that at the moment. So that's going to be very exciting. So not quite a success yet, but hopefully in a few years' time it will be. So yeah, nice to meet everyone. So I'll be obviously I think I'll be part of this group going forward along with Lindsay. So yeah, looking forward to hearing about everything everyone's doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy. That's some great successes so far. Brilliant. Let's keep moving. Let's go to Andrew Baird.
Right there. I'm Andrew Baird. I'm from Manchester Metropolitan University. I'm a senior lecturer in the business school. We've been involved in the Sea Change programme, and we've been working with Nicola and Peter since 20-something or other, early 20s. When was it? About 2012 or 13 or something? Or
Yeah,
about that. Yeah. So we've been doing quite a lot of stuff along the way. Some things have dropped off, some things have continued. The top successes in terms of social enterprise is probably we managed to obviously seed fund quite a few student businesses during the programme. And the main success really in terms of institutionally is that we've now got a social innovation through entrepreneurship unit as a core unit on the business management programme. So that's going to get around 400 to 500 students a year engaging in social enterprise activities. And we've also got a master's in entrepreneurship as well that has got a strong ethos in engaging with social enterprise as well. So on the academic side, we've had a few things successful in terms of getting it into the curriculum by different titles and different ways, but we've managed to get it in there. I'm sure Louise will tell you about some of the other stuff we've been doing on the innovation side of things with just Young Enterprise and the other groups and things that we work with, but specifically with social enterprises, it's quite promising now that we've got this group that starts in September for the first cohort of 450 students, I think it is, something like that, where we're going to have direct access to them to work on projects with the community and look at ways in which we can set up social enterprises. So we should hopefully have quite a bit of activity come out of it. And then just in terms of this, we're hopefully looking to join this network and look for future funding and potential partnerships to get things moving forward again.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andrew.
Back to me lunch. Thanks.
Pleasure. Enjoy. I'm hoping I'm buying all of you a bit of time to have some lunch if you get the chance over the next period. And good segue. Let's go straight then to Louise.
Hi everyone, I'm Louise Kenworthy. I am the Inner Space Manager. So Inner Space is Manchester Met's business incubator, business startup centre for pre-start and early stage businesses and more established businesses who are looking to engage with the knowledge exchange at the university. I've worked with Nicola, known Nicola for God knows how long.
20 years.
20 years, yeah, a very long time. I used to work at Salford University before MMU, so I've known Nicola a long time, working on lots of different projects. With the Sea Change project, I supported Andrew with that project. And in terms of success stories, we run a business startup bootcamp that we switched virtual last summer, so we're getting quite a few social related businesses coming through on that program, and we've also got a program called Rise, which is for extracurricular activity, and it's for self-learning for the students to just do in their own time, and there's a strong focus on social entrepreneurship on that as well, where there's different modules that the students can undertake, and I think we're looking at redeveloping that, so we'll probably be in touch with you about that, Nicola, as well. So there's lots of different units virtually that the students can take up. I know the careers department are looking at getting a student enterprise society together, so like an Enactus team, hopefully. I've been involved in that in previous years, so hopefully they'll get something like that off the ground soon as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise. And then last but by no means least, Mariama. And I know Mariama's out and about at the moment, I think possibly on mobile. So I'm just checking, Mariama, are you able to share right now?
I think so, yes, I've stopped now. So.
Perfect.
Hi everyone, sorry I'm off camera because I'm in the car. But, hi, I'm Mariama. So I am the Social Enterprise Programme Manager at the Social Enterprise. So we are a subsidiary of Coventry University. So I know a few of you, but not everybody. We are actually part of the Sea Change programme. So when I first started my role back in 2015, we were actually part of that programme. So that's kind of one of the first programmes that I worked on. So it's really nice to see actually how far some of our social entrepreneurs who were fortunate enough to be funded through that programme have come as well. So in terms of the top current success, we are actually in the process of just sort of starting out a social incubation kind of program. So we're piloting it actually with People's Help. So we're actually piloting to help our social entrepreneurs from startup to actually take them through the acceleration and growth phase. So we're really looking forward to doing that. We've also been awarded for money as part of the Better Incubation program, which is kind of sponsored by the EBM, which is linking incubation actors for inclusive and social entrepreneurship. So we are part of a cohort of 8 who across Europe who are actually looking at how we can better support refugees and migrants within the social enterprise space. So there's actually 5 other groups as well. So that's 2 are looking at how women, youth, elderly, and those with disabilities can also why these underrepresented groups are not sort of getting the funding and the kind of tailored support they need through social entrepreneurship. So we're quite excited to do that, and we're more than happy to share our findings with this group as well, if that's any of the sort of areas that you're looking to support your students or the wider community. So yeah, so really looking at that. That's over a 12-month period. So that's starting in conjunction with our incubator plan. So it's quite exciting that we can actually, use the learning in real time to help support our clients from those sort of marginalised groups. We were also part of the My Friendly Cookies programme, which ran for 3 years from 2018. So we actually supported 16 social entrepreneurs from the migrant and refugee community within Coventry, Wolverhampton and Birmingham to actually start up their own social enterprises. So we trained 42 as part of our Social Evolve programme, which is our kind of foundation level startup programme for social enterprise. We funded 16 to then go on and actually start their own, and as a result of that, so a year on from the end of the programme, we kind of did a bit of research and did some data collection, and they've actually employed 45 people between them, and over 2,638 beneficiaries have actually benefited from those social enterprises started. So we're really looking forward to being here and learning more and hopefully collaborating with many more of you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mariam. I think that is everyone so far. So thank you, everyone, for those helpful introductions. In terms of the session today, so for the remainder of the session, we're going to focus really on 4 things. First of all, really setting and establishing those network aims and your expectations around how the network will evolve. Obviously, we heard quite a lot from you back in February, but there are some new faces. We want to make sure what we're reporting back today is what we would like to take forward as a network. Secondly, actually agreeing the final plan for activities and sessions between now and the end of the year. So running past you what those sessions look like and when they're likely to take place. Then moving into a discussion around the joint programme bidding, proposals and a possible consortium, what that could look like, the key themes across that, and finally closing with some networking conversations where we'll break you out into 2 sets of breakouts for conversations towards the end of the session. And we would like to build that into all of the sessions that we run, so you have some tailored time just for you to connect as universities, in the same way that if we were running these events physically, there would be that networking time built in. So those are the 4 key themes for today and the remaining 90 minutes we have together. I'm then going to pass over to Nikela to talk about those network aims to start with.
Great, thanks, Peter. I'm just going to unclog my screen with funny little boxes I've got open, trying to make sure I can see everybody. So, yes, I think I know everybody. For the couple of people who perhaps I've not met before, I worked with Peter on the Sea Change programme for several years, and since leaving that, I ended up evolving the consultancy programme and developing that as that programme came to an end. And that was one of the elements that ended up with Flourish Together setting up. Flourish Together is a kind of pay it forward consultancy that supports social entrepreneurs to lead the change they see needed in communities. We've got quite a focus on reinvesting our surpluses in women as a force for social change, and we've invested in over 200 women with cash and support in the last 5 years since we've been running that. We've, you know, we're not a big organisation, but we can deliver results that are kind of can compete with the sort of national agencies really because of our experience and expertise. So we're just pleased to be able to come back together and look at how we can reinvigorate this. Basically in February, when we had a kind of room full of interested people and others around the edges that were curious about what we could do, we listened into what you all said. And you know, whilst we came with certain ideas and we wondered, oh, well, what about this, what about that, the things that seem to come forward and have stuck are, you know, there's a genuine interest in wanting to relaunch a peer network virtually for now, and perhaps later in person. We have put within the programme that there's, you know, there's scope to run a kind of online broader event, a broader conference, as we'll see in the programme later, but it's unlikely there'll be anything physical happening, only because of, you know, the budget that we've put forward, you know, with our sort of £500 or so network offer, basically covers, you know, the coordination of this, the some time for me and Peter to go away and put together the bids and business develop relationships with potential funders, investors. So, you know, part of the reason for this virtual stuff, A, to deal with the pandemic, B, because you're all busy, and to make sure that, you know, we've all got capacity to be engaged and involved. There's clearly some interest. You know, there's been it feels like generally there's been a bit of a lull in recent years. It's great to hear all of the successes that you're talking about there. You know, but going back to sort of Tessa, initially like, oh, what have the successes been? That might have been being put on the spot straight away. But, you know, there was a general feeling last time that the impetus and the interest for and the demand hasn't gone away for supporting social entrepreneurs, but supporting strategic buy-in, looking at how we go about external promotion and rebuilding in some cases those connections again, whilst we've gone through perhaps a period of change and evolving at different universities. It felt like now is the time to help support some of that strategic buy-in and external promotion, which the network would aim to do clearly with connection building across this group, but also wider connection building with other partners as you know, the year rolls on. There was clearly cash is king was a message that came out loud and clear. You're all doing, you know, exciting work. You've all got communities of interest there. It feels like there's quite a student focus across this group. And historically, we've been interested in staff, students and recent graduates, and people have talked from different angles there. So the plan really, as things evolve, is to look at working with you to see how we can put together a proposal to go to different people that we can talk about later, and think about how to create some match funding, basically a mini sea change in its own right, and it would give you support from ourselves, support internally, and cash to invest in the social entrepreneurs and innovators and leaders that you're working with. We'd hope over time we'll help to look at, you know, people's needs and whether it's packages of wraparound support that Peter and I can offer, and the networks that we have of other associates that are well embedded and have experience of working with universities. You know, there might be some quick wins and some quick fixes now, but certainly within a bit further down the line, having that as an option as well is something that we can look into. And then there's clearly a need for more you know, impact evaluation and legacy building. You're all doing great stuff here, and it's making me want to, you know, produce something that we can share and celebrate and shout about, not least to show, you know, what's still unfolding with different organisations, but also to get, you know, that strategic buy-in to pitch the case and to show the kinds of exciting different things that are going on across the country, and no doubt across the world with different networks that you've got as well, in terms of the legacy that's being built with the social entrepreneurs you support, how your staff teams work, and new innovations that can form through collaboration through the network as it evolves. So those are the sorts of things that we heard, and what we're keen to engage you in a conversation with is what's missing. I've got some questions here, and I might see if we come off slide share, Peter, just so we can see people's faces and we can have a proper chat. But we'd love to seek your thoughts on what we'd heard there. We're going to come back to the plan of what the programme of the peer support days is going to look like, and we're going to come back to what a bid, ideal ingredients of a bid might look like. So we'll come back to that shortly, but I'd be keen to hear initially from yourselves, is there anything that's missing from what we heard there in terms of what we're hoping to sort of galvanise and evolve over the coming months with this sort of connected group? There's a kind of what's missing, there might be a who's missing, that I'll delve into in a minute. But anybody, any thoughts when we've brought you back around and said, what do you make of this? Is that more or less what you need, or is there something else or something more pressing that we're not kind of amplifying? Feel free to come off mute if there's anything. Oh, happy days. We've been good mind readers. Go on, Andy. What were your thoughts?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I was just wondering if Louise has got any thoughts about how maybe there might be something to do with some of the physical presences at the different universities as well, and how we could tie those up. Because we're doing some work with Oldham at the minute, as you know, with the Great Manchester Combined Authority, and there's talks there around spaces and what to use. And I've got a meeting with another guy on Friday who's approached us independently about utilising spaces and how they can use those to support social innovation and social enterprise development. So I'm just wondering if there's anything around that if it's a bit more of a reach, but whether or not there's something, if it's virtually or physically, how we can connect up the different support services and the different premises.
And there certainly might be, scope. The next session in June, the stuff that we're going to look at, and we'll mention that later. There's a bit of homework for you all before we come back that we'll suss out with you. But looking at partnerships and looking, internal, external partnership, what makes effective partnerships to help scope this bid out a bit further. If as part of what you want to do, doing some learning journeys, going to visit each other, we can, you're all grown ups, you know how to go do that, but we can help facilitate that. Or if there's particular things going on, we can promote certain things, can't we, across this group to get people if they want to come to certain things. It strikes me that there's an element of, in that promotional aspect, how, on the limited time, budget and whatnot we've got for now, before we start putting pen to paper properly, what assets we can create. And I was just, as I'm jotting down everybody's kind of, potted sort of successes there on what's going on and what you're up to, it's quite simple for Peter and I to put together a PDF of some sort, as shiny as we can make it within our limited skills, and also perhaps include, a social entrepreneur case study or a place-based or innovation case study, so that we can be sharing these sorts of things more broadly than we can reach right now. But both Peter and I, and no doubt your institutions, have really good reach and really good networks on social media. So there's probably some, for me, what's missing is there's probably some simple assets we can create in 2D and audio visually over the coming months that would help share, showcase and bring stuff to life, that even if people can't visit somewhere, there might be some visual sort of mini case studies that we can help pull together to show off what's going on really across the board. One of the questions I'd got was a who's missing. I realised people are very busy. We had about 13 organisations initially, look at what we were doing here. A couple have had to say, oh, timing doesn't work for us, or come back to us later, or there's a new term, keep us on a watching brief, whatever that means. But basically, there's more people who could be involved in this, and I just wondered whether there's anybody who we should be approaching across the universities that, either you're surprised that they're not. Peter, I don't know if you want to just say who's signed up and who's in the process of thinking about it, and then we can have a think. Are we missing anybody that would really, really like to be here?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Nicole. I mean, we've got a pretty good spread across England at the moment. We've got Westminster, Warwick, UAL, Coventry, Sheffield Hallam, who can't be here. Obviously, MMU in the room as well, who are looking to sign up. As you said, Nicola, we've got a couple on a watching brief who I think might be interested in joining us next academic year. It's a pretty good spread. I think it's just over half of the original group that joined us in February.
Did you mention Cumbria there as well? I know.
Absolutely, Cumbria are interested. I know Manchester were quite keen. We don't have anybody in the Southwest. I think it would be nice to have a Southwest university. But if there's anybody in your network that that perhaps we didn't reach out to in February or didn't come back to us, or who in your region,
that you're networking with, who you think could be, either useful brains in the room or wouldn't want to miss out on this potential opportunity, then let us know, and we'll help you sort of reach out to them, or because certainly for now, obviously we've got. I don't know if you want to pull the slides back up, Peter. We've got just waiting for moving on. Do you want to move it back one step? Oops, there we go. Where we're currently at is obviously we've got, I think we've got 5 signed up. We've got about 3 who are looking, seriously at signing up. When we first looked at this, we were like, how's this all going to work? So obviously we'll be sending invoices out to those universities who've signed up. Obviously, it's £500 for the time that we're putting into running the 3 sessions, plus a wider sort of virtual conference and a couple of days really hammering out a bid that we can spend some time building relationships with a number of players that we've got in our heads, and you might have in your heads, where we can take this and pitch for. Well, it can look like whatever it needs to look like. We'll come back to that with you, but certainly in terms of recreating a mini sea change programme, and with the universities that we're intending on working with, whether it's 5, whether it's 8, to us that feels like a really neat innovation partnership. For those of you that might have been involved in the sea change programmes initially, you'll remember there was this hundreds. It's like 100 universities initially that were had different programs and initiatives and ideas sort of buzzing around. Then there were about 56 to 55 that worked on various years of the Sea Change programme. I think you work with about 80 universities intensively overall. And then as the years went on, people formed into these sort of clusters or innovation partnerships, and we've been sort of waiting to see who might be involved and who wants to do what. But certainly if we've got a group of 5 to 8 universities who are getting on board here, it feels like an innovation partnership where we can really work together, both for that peer support and that mutual learning and knowledge sharing, visits or creating assets, mapping things, carrying out some additional research and impact evaluation and those sorts of things, but also to work together on, I guess, a consortium approach to securing resources. And I guess in our minds, we're looking at, a minimum of, 20 to 25k per university and upwards, depending on what we can do in order to deliver a program of support that also has that match funding cash attached to be able to invest in people. And so the more the merrier, I guess, at this stage. So if you've got thoughts on other people who might want to be involved, do let us know. And for those people who aren't in this innovation partnership as it evolves, that's why we've built in the session in November, I think it is September, November, to start inviting the wider world into see what other people are doing, because clearly there are other networks out there, people that are working with actors, people that are working with social enterprise mark. We've become aware of this aspect, I think it's called, initiative, where there's quite a number of universities link more to social sciences that are involved in that. And Nikki Dickens, who a number of you will know, has actually been invited to evaluate the Aspect programme. She's a long-standing sort of colleague that I've worked with for many years, and you know, we'll be sharing the findings of that. But what she has said is that you know, the Sea Change programme and what it evolved, you know, to create. I'll come to you in a second, Nadia. I've seen your hand up. You know, sorry, can you move the slide on, Peter? You know, the Sea Change programme and what it was able to achieve, the level of diversity in that, the level of universities having their own freedom to do whatever it was that made best sense in their culture, in their institution and in their community, and then learning from that and creating impact off of that, she felt was, you know, by far and away the best way to embed social enterprise, social innovation and other things. So it's really encouraging when you know, we've been listening to the different universities that are involved so far, that, you know, you're all quite different. You've got different areas of focus, you've got different areas of success, and different ways of doing things. Some more research based, some more enterprise based, some more in curriculum based. And I think there's going to be a real richness in all of that, that we hope, you know, will set some of what this network and the people who are involved in it will be able to achieve, you know, in your own way. So Andy, sorry about that, I was prattling on there, but you've got a...
Yeah, so interesting. No, I was just thinking about when you said like who else might want to get involved, just thinking who the universities are more familiar with, like more established partnerships they already have. So things like whether or not we could tie in some way or get acknowledgement from like EUK or someone, or IOEE or someone like that who has already got kind of some established networks already that we might be able to cut across, and might be more visible to some of the decision makers we need to be able to sign off on giving us hours to do these things and to match fund some things if they see it kind of as part of a bigger network, although we know it cuts into the world of, you know, the capitalist approach of entrepreneurship development, but it's something that might just resonate a bit more.
Sure, and I think the beauty of doing this is when we ran the Sea Change programme, we had I don't know whether people realise, but behind the scenes we had a kind of steering group and an advisory group from some of the more strategic, senior and sort of national agencies out there. And I think as part of this, when we're coming to look at the bid and when we're coming to look at what beyond and what into next year, pulling together, and that's what some of this time is for. You know, I'd say you're getting a bargain because as well as your 3 peer learning sessions, a wider sort of showcasing, you know, half day. Peter and I are committed to putting in a couple of days donkey work really to go and get these people back around the table, which is an exciting thing to be able to do, and to go and dig back up. It'd be quite cathartic. The various contacts and colleagues that supported this work previously, and don't get me wrong, some of them will have moved on, some of them won't be interested, but certainly, as you say, Andy, the major networks out there, some of the ones that you describe, SE UK, SE Mark, whoever's involved in developing some of this aspect stuff, that we're aware of some of the characters in that, and Universities UK, going back to the likes of Ed Hughes and others. There's various people that I think, you know, in addition to what we're doing here, getting some further brains around the table. And that's why at the next session around, you know, effective partnerships, we're hoping that between now and then we will have spoken to some of these people and we'll invite some of them to that session so that they can hear what's happening and you know, share their thoughts as well. Fab. Do you want to click on Peter? These were just background slides. You know.
I think we've got a question from Tessa as well.
Oh, far away, Tessa. Yeah.
Cheers. I'm just thinking about the network and whether we are considering any international universities. I think, was it Westminster mentioned the UN Sustainability Development Goals, and I think that's very much something that's coming up on our agenda. And we've been trying to link with different universities in Canada, Singapore around our accelerator program. I'm just wondering what your thoughts were. And Peter, you've hooked me up with people internationally previously.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'll quickly take that, Tessa. It's a good point. It is, of course, the topic of our next event and conversation, as Nikela trailed earlier. And I think you're absolutely right that some kind of international partnerships and relationships will be on the cards, whether it be through international universities or other organisations who can support the work. You remember that Sea Change actually replicated into Canada as well as into other countries. So we did some work in, I think, off the top of my head, Canada, Thailand, I think a little bit of work in Spain as well. India, of course, Nikela, you were heavily involved in that. So we took it to other countries, and therefore we can, of course, bring in some of those connections back into the network, either as members or, as Nikela said, as sort of advisors. I guess the key thing for us is what's the USP? What's the real value proposition of this network versus some of the other networks that are out there? Because while obviously we would want to collaborate, and I think it is, social enterprise has always been a collaborative space in many senses. What makes us different and stand out from those, and what value can we bring to you? Because we know that some of you are already members of some, if not all, of those networks. So we're really conscious of that. And if there's anything in there that you really want us to pull out, we're happy to do it.
Oh, Richard's got his hand up.
Yeah, I totally agree with the points that Tessa, Andy and others have made. And I was just going to add, I know that you've said in the previous slide, sort of the network is very much inside HE, but also outside. And I think the outside bit is really important to me, and hopefully for others. I think universities have, should we say, naturally a little bit insular. And I think the last year has only really tended to reinforce that, which is understandable, I think, as we've, sought to secure our own futures and look to the, what we're going to look like coming out the other side of this. But at the same time, maybe I'm not saying this for everyone, but certainly from my point of view, that's meant I've not maybe had the opportunity or taken my eye off the ball a bit when it comes to what's been going on outside the sector. And I think one thing that I really benefit from Nikela and Peter and your background expertise is pointing us towards organisations that would like to work with universities and who have their expertise in supporting all sorts of different things that we've already talked about. So I think that is really useful. I certainly would find that really useful. And then the other thing you kind of briefly mentioned about the other networks and initiatives that you've mentioned, Nikela. I mean, I can again say I don't necessarily always know about all those things. And so when we're having these meetings, it's always probably useful to share whether that's initiatives that people have picked up regionally or locally, or that they just kind of seen something that comes under in an email inbox that we may not all know about. But I think it's useful, especially given the kind of geographical spread that we've got. I think it'd be really useful to hear what is going on elsewhere. And I'm always, it's always useful to know we don't always necessarily know about those things. So yeah, both those things would be really helpful.
And what you're describing there, Richard, I'm trying to think, how do we do this quickly and deeply in the time we've got? But it's all there. So I think a good thing that we can do, potentially next time actually, there's a plan to kind of have a bit of a show and tell and hear from people, but we might invite you. I've recently learned about how to do these Jamboards, and that is the surefire, the quickest way to get everything down. And I think we could probably create some simple fag packet toolkits, for want of a better phrase, whilst we build up the resources to make them more shiny, more in depth and more collaborative. There's some simple, tool. I feel like I put, in terms of what's missing, we've got, potentially international options, opportunities and connections and thinking around that. I put assets, the way this stuff gets promoted, and potential sort of toolkit. And that's assets for knowledge sharing, not just talking, because what you gain from the peer learning is going to be great, but if we can get that down into listen again options or items that you can share, then all the better. Wider strategic partners, I always forget about that. For us, that's the given. And maybe we need to, next session we'll be having a bit more of a think on what do we mean by that, and we'll map and share what we know and what we know there's an interest for, in order to best think about how we invite those people in. And we then invite those people in sort of September and November, to the follow-up sessions then. Outside is really important, so I've made a good note of that, and various other bits. So I think that's really helpful. I won't take up too much more time on that, because we want to give you plenty of time in your breakouts later, and there's a bit more to consider. That was just in there for the sake of it, Peter, so you could move on. more than memory jogger. It was like a long time ago. There we go. So for me, for now, I think that's really helpful to think about what's missing, and what the only unknown, or it's not an unknown, it's just going to have to evolve as it goes. You can only play with who wants to play, you know. And so, you know, we'll tease people in as we go from the different segments that you just talked about. But for the purposes of getting a useful amount of money that we can support you to pull in, work with, use, and have, you know, hopefully cash at your disposal to be able to invest in your social entrepreneurs, then keeping it contained for now. But it depends what we decide to do. There's two options, and we'll come to that on the bid thing in a minute. But there's a kind of network for pulling this consortium bid together, and then there's a kind of wider knowledge sharing network. And I think we probably perhaps need to distinguish those a little bit further as we go. But absolutely, you know, the whole point of having this network together is to kind of invite and the wider world to connect and share, and, you know, get that innovation and knowledge sharing happening. All the while, alongside that, we're hoping that those of you that have bought into this will work with intensively to bring some resources in to both support you as institutions, and also create some further resource to create a more broad network, you know, later on in the year that we can, you know, put out more broadly. So anyway, that's just my thoughts out loud. And by all means, put any other thoughts in the chat, or you can email me if you have a light bulb moment in the next few days. But I'll hand back to Peter now, just to run through what's planned, and we can just check in with you on that.
Perfect. Thanks, Nikela. And just to echo those thoughts, I think absolutely there's an intention to bring in external partners, international or otherwise, and other universities into that wider peer network, and to have that potentially as large as we can make it, especially in a virtual sense. That's relatively easy to do. But we absolutely consider you to be founding members, and I think that sort of joint bidding process is something that not all universities want to be part of. We're hoping, of course, all of you will. So we think there's a sort of smaller and perfectly formed group there that will take that forward. And in terms of how we take that forward, we have a further set of events for you in the diary already. So on 21st of June, our second formal event will take place at the same times. And the focus will really be on partnerships, external, international, collaborative partnerships. And we're going to review what we think effective partnerships will look like. We will have some homework for all of you to bring some examples of partnerships to the table. We'll do some mapping, some showcasing and reconnecting, and we'll present that back to you from our point of view. And we'll consider, of course, what that partnership for a joint bid or proposal could look like. So that's really event 2 in the middle of the summer. Then the formal summer break, July and August, we won't host an event. We'll give you a chance to all take a break and potentially go away if you can. And then we'll be doing behind the scenes some partnership building and some bid development over that same period to present back in September. And September will be the third event. This time we'll focus very much on incubation and acceleration, as well as perspectives and approaches to coaching and mentoring for social entrepreneurs. And we'll update you on that bid process. As Nikela's rightly said, from that point on, I think we can safely start to bring in other organizations into the group, potentially to pitch their work, to talk more about how they may be able to collaborate with you, and of course do showcase any that you're already working with, as I know many of you already have those relationships in place. And then the sort of final formal event of the year really will be 15th of November, and that's the half-day conference that Nikela talked about, and that will be co-designed with all of you, and it will be a development and discovery day. It's a chance for, again, externals to come in, potentially other universities to join us, and for us to share the outcomes of the program, as well as the additional partnerships and developments we've come up with, and of course progress around that joint proposal writing process, which we hope will be well developed by then and very much out there. Then we'll be thinking about, of course, the legacy going into 2022 and what this could look like at a bigger scale, potentially with some in-person activity, and you'll be central to that. So these are the 4 major events we've got planned between now and the end of the year. Nikela, anything to add at this point?
Not from me. I think it would be just good to hear whether
Absolutely.
it's hitting the mark really from our colleagues. And there might be other things that you are doing. You know, this is our calendar, you know, but invariably, if we're going to, you know, be a network, we can, you know, put together and share other things. So if you know, one of the bits of homework perhaps after today is that if you know things are coming up in the year that you think other people in the network would be interested to be part of or be aware of, we can add other people's whatever conferences, events, or other things in the mix here to share and promote those sorts of things. But it'd be good to hear what you're making of this, if you've got any thoughts or comments. Oh, silence. I can't see anyone either. Is anyone waving? Let me put you on. Oh, gone quiet. Oh. I mean, I know we sent you this in an email, so you've seen it, but this is your chance to sort of either say, yeah, that's about right, or no, this is well off the mark, or do this. Go on, Andrew, you're off mute.
Yeah, it looks all right. Yeah. I think the only thing that we'll probably struggle with is, and again, I'll talk to Louise about how we can maybe join in this a bit more. It's just like if we're doing match funding, it's getting the buy-in from our business school to get the academics out of the post to join in, because there's very much a focus, but at least there was in the last 12 months, on tightening the belt. And if any funding's coming in, it's got to cover the cost of
whatever's going
on. Yeah.
And I think when we use that term match funding, we're using it in the sea change sense, where I don't know if you remember back in the day, there was no set and you must put in this amount of money or you must do this. It was, let's work with you, let's see what you've got to put to the pot, be that resources. For us, match funding is resources, whether that's investment that's already taking place within your institution, man hours, lady hours, whoever running things already. So whenever we've put proposals and ideas together before, bringing 10, 15, 20 grand or whatever into your institution, there may well need to be, or we may well look to do some cash element, but in the main we anticipate a vast chunk of any match funding would be time and other resources that you're investing in your communities already.
Yeah, I think it just might need some creative accounting on our part to wrap it round in the right language that they like, so that they let me know it.
Well, we're all very good at that. So yeah, I think it's a case of going to some of the partners, really thinking about wider funder partners, and thinking about what the approach needs to be like, how much we can get out of them, and then we can worry about all that then. But we'll come on to that shortly, actually, won't be on bid, so I won't. Has anybody got any other thoughts on the structure of this sort of plan for now? And hopefully it's hopefully it's manageable in terms of capacity and time, and we'll people will be able to commit to these dates. But in terms of the content,
there might be a way of tying it in with some of the other, because around September time is usually when there's some of the conferences, so there might be a way of tying it into just some of the different partners that we can get involved to try and promote it or shout about the success of it.
Yeah, and it may be that beyond this, there's other things. I think it would be helpful. We can go away and map, between Peter, ourselves, and Will, who's working, as part of the EUK. There's things that we can look. What does the calendar look like currently for HEIs, and is there a little bit of something we need to put together to check, opportunities, but also showcasing options. So I foresee there'll be our sort of 4 things, and then we'll be able to sort of dovetail this in with, and there's these other options, and we'll see whether either representatives from this group, or, it's worth doing some dovetailing across when we get to that point, or thinking about at what point in the journey. It feels like it will be September, November time before we start wanting to sort of share and talk about what's evolving here, just so we can get the time to think a bit further on what's people are trying to achieve, and getting something moving.
On that, I just want to quickly pick up on the Enterprise Educators UK point, because Michaela's rightly pointed out that at our launch event, Will Pritchard, who used to work in the Sea Change team as well, as you probably know, is a director of Enterprise Educators UK. There's a really strong link in there, as there will be with other networks, but I do think there's a real strong sort of synergy and sense of shared values with the work they're doing. I don't think it's the work we're doing here is too competitive with that, but it could feature as part of their events and activities. And as you rightly say, Andrew, the conference season sort of kicks off in September, is a big focus for that. So they're probably one of the lower hanging fruit we would want to have a conversation with, and Will is aware of the work we're doing. So I think that and more, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that EUK, I think, will be an important partner.
So
I'll move us on then, Nicola, to
the joint bidding. Yeah, by all means, if anything comes up or you think, oh, we need to include this, let us know. So, we've already alluded a little bit to some of what our thoughts on this, and and it's all today's just setting out some thoughts and ideas, and at the next session or so we'll be shaping of this more. And obviously we're going to be having some one-to-one conversations with each of you. I think Peter's sort of covering the south, give or take. I'm covering the north, give or take, and we'll look at individual ideas and needs and thoughts and context when we come to look at all of this with you. We were just thinking, what are the the ingredients of a joint bid? Clearly, it's some of what we talked about earlier. The peer support network is it's almost the given and the kind of umbrella and the structure, and that's your peer support network here that we're kind of evolving, almost like an innovation partnership and a kind of larger sort of action learning group together, as well as building that kind of wider network as the months roll on, and as we start to invite wider partners, other university partners and other people in, once they can see more about the value of that and what's going on, and the diversity of knowledge that will evolve through this. The capacity building programme is the main part. That's the bit that needs the money. The capacity building, any bespoke consultancy that might be needed, cash to invest in people and enterprise and social enterprise and so on. Support for incubation and acceleration where universities that focus or emphasize that, potential coaching offers and support. Basically that's tying in with other parts of that capacity building support. We just wondered, is there anything else? A lot of this is almost just not quite a carbon copy. Some of this has evolved, but a carbon copy of the elements of the Sea Change programme. And I think the idea is that we can easily craft, either proposal or a funding bid that covers these elements, can talk about the past and what the impact and the benefits were, can talk about your current needs now, can talk about the different institutions involved and so on, and playing to the strengths of the partners that have come forward, in order to get cash to invest in these things with you and for you and what in whatever direction you need that to happen. But I just wonder if there's international, feels like it's missing off there. There might be something within a joint bid where we need some, it's like, how long's a piece of string, isn't it? We could certainly create international conversations, and we can certainly create virtual stuff through a neat, easy bid. There might be a kind of neat, easy bid. There might be 2 or 3 scenarios, mightn't there, that we come up with, where there's the kind of, how do we get, £250,000 so that you each have a good, cash pot to invest in people with some additional support and some strategic buy-in and research work. And then what does a bigger piece, what do the bigger pieces look like that are either more specialist into thematic areas that you're working in, or that are more broad in terms of who we would choose to work with? And we've got links into people like the British Council and others, and links into other international universities and networks, so we can, I feel we should, whilst we're exploring the neat and tidy version, given the international interest, and given that it does feel like the world's gone a little bit place-based right now, and whilst there's beauty in that, we're probably, certainly for the university sector, getting ahead and not losing relationships and innovation opportunities, globally, especially with the SDGs and other elements that kind of have an international focus around social enterprise and innovation. It would be mad not to think about how we weave that in. So it was a strength before, and it is probably even more so now. So that's one. Anything else I've got in the back of my mind? But anything else is, in terms of, if we were to put pen to paper on a bid, which we're not going to do particularly today, we're just thinking about what might, so we can start thinking about drafting elements and who might the suitable funders or backers of this be. Is there anything else from your different contexts that might be helpful to add in or to consider?
Just around which kind of covers a lot of these elements anyhow, but just around like ecosystems, you know, how you make it sustainable on its own with these different constituent parts.
Yeah.
And that's some of the work they're doing in Greater Manchester at the minute as well. So it kind of sits alongside that, and it's what I'm doing research in as well. So it's of interest to me personally. So
yeah, and I guess with that, are you meaning kind of infrastructure and building more infrastructure and sort of diverse ecosystems, or are you kind of pushing on that from the sustainability point of view? Because, you know, one of the bugbears for me anyway, you know, is that, you know, we put all this effort and all this resource and all this amazing stuff happened through sea change, and there's probably a bit of thinking time we need on to, you know, and how does that type of network ecosystem, these legacies, not just remain as, you know, reports and case studies and, you know, amazing social businesses that, you know, which is the point, but some of those ongoing relationships can, you know, knit together, glue together more sustainably, so that knowledge doesn't disappear, and, you know, consultants who are really good at this stuff are well known and can you know, swoop in or, you know, partner with people where that's useful in adding value to what you already do. Is it a bit of both there, Andy?
yeah, it's about kind of like partly around the infrastructure and partly around, like I say, the partnerships themselves, and how just to make them, like I say, a bit more sustainable. And they might be place-based things in terms of what's needed for different parts of it. And again, that might come from the different partners that we work with that create that kind of bonding, where we can get some anchor institutions to keep these things going if we're involved or not.
Okay.
And it's just kind of cutting across a lot of things that are on there, but it's just thinking of that connected up in terms of how would you create that, like, kind of that support system that will continue without over dependent on one stakeholder involved.
No, it's good enough. Yeah. No. And it opens up options for other geographic or thematic backers and funders, you know, thinking of it like that as well. So that's helpful. Anybody else? Anything burning around this? It's something that will evolve. We'll end up kind of starting to put a kind of fag packet stuff together, and then, you know, we'll shape it and mold it between us and see what seems right and relevant. And just like with the Sea Change programme previously, not all universities got the same slice of the cake, so to speak. You know, it's me in my ideal world where, you know, the cash has landed. You know, some universities are, you know, doing more. You know, we had some universities that, you know, had you know, £50,000 cash awards, and some that only wanted 15 to 20, and vice versa. You know, so it was down to demand, need, and what was relevant and appropriate, either for that team that was doing whatever it was in that institution, or you know, down to what resources and funds and so forth they were already investing in this sort of stuff. So we will be having a think about all of that as we go. There's no one size fits all, so to speak. I know some of the networks out there might kind of funnel you down a certain path or make you be bronze, silver, gold, or whatever it might be. And I think with this, it's about, you know, helping invest in you as individuals, you know, you as institutions, and you as a sort of a collective, so that we get a kind of multi-pronged, you know, legacy out of this with a bit of luck. Great. What's the next slide, Peter? I can't remember. Oh, here we go. So yeah, some of this I've just, you know, kind of jumped the gun talking about, but this was just in the back of our minds, and I'm thinking, who are we likely to go to here? Who might help us? Who might still have an interest in this sort of stuff? Clearly, you know, there's university funds and funders, and we, you know, when we're having our one-to-one conversations with you, we might sort of tease some of this stuff out. They're certainly going back to key characters who backed and invested and were, you know, strong allies of this work previously, as well as new organisations that have formed since. I'm thinking here in the kind of university and social enterprise worlds. But then, as Andrew's just been talking there, there's perhaps place-based options, thematic, and other sort of innovation options that we can consider. So I guess, you know, we'll leave no stone unturned when it comes to thinking about who'll back this stuff. And I wouldn't say if all else fails, but one of the thoughts that we had is the opportunity to perhaps even look at this as a Reaching Communities partnership bid, led by either Flourish or one of the. I don't know whether they'll directly fund the university. I need to double check that with the size of you and several things. They may well do, depending on governance and structure. But certainly, I know Flourish can walk in and put a partnerships bid together for Reaching Communities bid quite easily. That would be over a 2 or 3 year period and so forth. So that's option number one is that's a version, and then there are other more sector specific, HE specific, or global, I guess, options. Given the conversations we've been having, so we'll be thinking in terms of those types of funders, and in terms of the kind of place-based anchors and others that and even corporates that different universities have relationships with, and we have different relationships with. Looking at what, like Peter said before, what's the USP and the proposition for all of this? The need and demand for universities now, and the need and demand for your communities in wanting to do this, and what change, legacy, and I guess purpose there is in whatever funder it is wanting to back this sort of stuff. Clearly, we'll be needing to map a little bit more about you as institutions, and in addition to reams of stuff we've got from the Sea Change programme. Given I did the full evaluation for all that, and that report's that document's all still there with stats aplenty, but that bit more around what's been happening since then, and additional impact that's been rolling on that both shows the appetite, but and the potential, but also shows these kind of challenges around cuts, structural changes, COVID, and all sorts of other things that may have hampered as much progress happening in this area as otherwise would, and the kind of wider social need for this stuff, given the times that we're living in. And the scale, this, we won't have heaps of time or capacity to look at what the scale of social value is in this, because that's a job in itself. But we can certainly put some of that thinking together in a bid to try and convince these funders and investors to back this. We've talked about legacy, we've talked about partnerships, and clearly, we'll be looking with I won't say a fine-tooth comb, but we'll be looking at a kind of, ballpark financial needs for different institutions, and how we wrap that up as a bid, so that budgets make sense and are clear and transparent, and everybody's aware of what the options are, I guess. So that was the thinking we were going about. But I guess from funder, and you might be thinking about this from either your existing funders that you've had useful conversations or challenges with, or local, whether they be local or university wise. I wonder, are there any other things that we might need to be aware of when we're putting this bid together, and in terms of what the backers may or may not want to hear, or trees that might be the wrong ones to bark up, so that we don't waste time with the limited capacity that we've got. Any thoughts? Granted, it's a competitive world out there at the moment. It always is, so we'll have to work quite hard to think about, why should somebody outside of universities back universities? But I wonder how hard we've got to work to convince the university sector, either from the research side or student side. How hard we're going to have to work to convince them of this, whether there's anybody's gossip or insider info on what might help us. And it's something we can come back to on one-to-one conversations, but if there's anything to consider at this point, shout up.
Well, we could send you our strategy, which is there's emphasis on community, there's emphasis on the SDGs. Mm-hmm. There's obviously like the post-COVID recovery as well. So there's quite a few things that might dovetail with it. And then there's the internationalisation that we talked about earlier. So
yeah,
those things will tend to resonate internally. And then
you fill in your EOI, Andy, you'll be able to pop your link in there. I could go and that could be my bedtime reading for next month. But no, that'd be really helpful. Actually, we'll need. It's making me think back to Sea Change actually, and where the EOIs that universities put in then, and we've not gone quite as thorough as we did it with them. We've chopped quite a bit out of the EOI, but getting the strategic sort of perspective from each of your universities on, you know, why this is important for you, will also help sort of feed into why this is potentially important for the wider backers of this work. Fab. Anybody got any other thoughts? Because we want to make sure we've got a good chunk of time for you to have your networking sort of conversations and breakouts. But
just to add to what Andy was just saying, I think certainly our innovation strategies also, there's lots about how we need to be more, you know, instrumental in supporting the local and regional economy. So I suppose it might depend who we're looking at for funding and investment, but if it's, you know, if it's sort of LEP related funding or from kind of combined authority, then, you know, we need to consider, I suppose it's covered largely by things like need and demand and legacy on your slide, but we need to consider how we're supporting those kind of regional economic strategies, whether that's around things like graduate retention or just being more aware of what the kind of labour market demands are going to be and what the kind of areas for growth are going to be over the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. We can probably add some, you know, information there that we can share.
Yeah, great. But yeah, I think basically if we go and have a good dig through for the university partners who we know have bought in by, I think we were setting a deadline of the end of May as like the final cut-off for people at least expressing their interests, and then obviously, as I've said, you know, invoices and whatnot go out after that. But if we go away and look at those, you know, 5 to 8 universities, you know, strategies on, you know, various things that you've just described, that should give us some additional useful context for all of that. So that's really helpful. Great. Well, if anyone has any other thoughts, by all means put them in the chat on some of this stuff. I realise it's, you know, it's probably quite deep thinking for a sunny Monday lunchtime, but I think we're all used to it really. So fab. Well, I'll hand back to you, Peter, for the fun bit, unless there's something else I've forgotten. Do you want to flick the next slide on?
Yeah, happy to, Nicola. So as promised, we'll try and build in some guarded time for networking breakouts in each of these sessions. And they're very much unfacilitated conversations for you. So at this point, I'm buying time for Nicola to set those up. But we've got,
right. Oh yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So we've got 6 of you, so we'll have 2 rooms of 3. Keep it very simple. We didn't set out with a particular topic for you to discuss because, again, we wanted them to be unfacilitated, especially in the opening session. But partnerships and collaborations are clearly come up more than probably others. So that might be something you want to reach out on. But obviously, anything that's of value to you. We won't be in those sessions as we were in the launch. So it's very much up to you what you discuss, how you discuss it. And we'll do that for about 15 to 20 minutes. I think we can set it for that period of time. And then at the end of it, all we'd ask is for one person in each group just to report back on some of the key ideas, themes, anything new really that's come up that we haven't heard so far that we could feed into anything that we've discussed today so far on the peer network, the bidding, the partnerships, etc. And after that, we will conclude and give you a bit of your online time offline.
Fabulous, great. Well, I've set these groups up in no particular order, other than splitting people up who are in existing institutions, I think. And yeah, it's your time to chat about whatever you want really. But in an ideal world, it'd be great to hear back if there's been any sort of key highlights from your conversations. And we'll see you in about 20 minutes. So I'm going to open all rooms. Peter obviously won't join, but join your breakout and have fun. We'll see you in 20 minutes or so. I'm being well, that will work for people. You just need to click the invite that's been sent through. And hopefully that will work. Hopefully still there. Oh. Hopefully, I think Andy and Louise are still due to join, and Mariam is still due to join. Poor Richard sat on his own. Oops. Are you still there, Louise? And Andy? Oh, there we go. Mariam is in. Is Andy and Louise there? If not, I'll move.
It's just Andy now, I think.
Oh, there you go. Louise has gone in with Richard. Great. I think hopefully if Andy's able to join the breakout, I don't know whether he's had to nip off or you've got a call or something, but your breakout's open anyway, Andy. So as and when Louise and Richard are in there, we'll see what happens. Cool. Okie doke. I shall stop recording and we will share that with people who've not been